3 years ago, when I was 19, my life took a wild turn, and people have been urging me to share the full tale ever since. So here it is, a raw, intense story with a payoff that feels incredibly satisfying. For privacy, I've tweaked some details, but the core events are exactly as they unfolded. Let me set the stage with my dysfunctional family dynamics, as they're key to understanding how this all went down. I'm Ryan, the older sibling by 2 years. My sister, Brittany, has a name that practically screams entitled diva. From childhood, the family pecking order was obvious. Brittany was the untouchable golden child, while I was the overlooked workhorse. While Brittany was pampered with manicures and shopping sprees funded by Mom's credit card, I was grinding away. I launched a lawn mowing gig at 12, worked at a sports shop by 16, and by 18, I was hauling materials on construction sites during weekends and summers, all while keeping a 3.7 GPA. My parents ran a decently successful landscaping company, and Dad often said it would one day be ours. But it was clear he meant Brittany's future husband would call the shots, while I'd be stuck doing the heavy lifting. Brittany, meanwhile, was studying communications at community college, though studying meant obsessing over her Instagram aesthetic. She cruised around in a shiny new Honda CR-V, paid for by the family but exclusively hers. Her wardrobe was a chaotic mix of designer labels. Meanwhile, I was saving every cent for my dream of attending State University's business program. Brittany, on the other hand, burned through cash like it was nothing. Designer purses, high-end cosmetics, and weekend getaways with her shallow friends. My parents, they just enabled her. One family dinner perfectly captured my childhood. I was excited to share news about a prestigious internship at a regional bank, a game changer for my career. But the moment Brittany stormed in, whining about a barely visible crack on her phone's screen, all eyes were on her. "Daddy, I need a new phone like yesterday," she pouted. "Of course, sweetheart, we'll get you the latest iPhone," Dad promised instantly. Meanwhile, my internship news was brushed off with, "That's nice, Ryan, you'll figure it out." That phrase, "you'll figure it out," summed up how my parents treated me. Brittany got everything handed to her. I was expected to fend for myself. The only people who truly supported my ambitions were my grandparents, Grandpa Joe and Grandma Ruth. They actually listened when I talked about business, helped with my economics assignments, and saw my potential beyond the family company. Grandpa Joe, a self-made man who built and sold a construction business, admired hard work and had no patience for Brittany's spoiled antics. "That girl's in for a reality check," he'd grumble whenever she threw a fit. Looking back, I should have spotted the red flags about my family's finances sooner, but I was too focused on my goals to notice. By 19, I'd saved nearly $23,000 for State University through construction work, my sports shop job, side landscaping gigs, and flipping motorcycles I'd buy cheap and repair. Every dollar was tracked, and I was proud of my hustle. State University's business program was top tier in our region, and getting in was my ticket to starting my own company, maybe in construction management or real estate. It wasn't glamorous to everyone, but I'd been hooked on entrepreneurship since helping Grandpa Joe with his business records as a kid. In March, I got the acceptance letter from State University's College of Business for the fall semester. I was so thrilled I probably startled the neighbor's dog with my shout. This was my way out of my family's chaos and into the career I'd worked for. But State University wasn't cheap, even with in-state tuition. With my savings, a part-time job, and some loans, I could just make it work. Then Grandpa Joe and Grandma Ruth dropped a life-changing surprise. While I was fixing their sprinkler system, Grandma handed me an envelope. "We know how hard you've worked for State University," she said with a warm smile. "College is pricey and we want to help," Grandpa added. Inside was a $15,000 cashier's check. I nearly dropped it. "This is too much," I stammered. "Nonsense," Grandpa said firmly. "We saved this for your education. You've got the brains and drive to make something of yourself." I got choked up, rare for me. They believed in me more than my parents ever did. With their gift and my savings, I had $38,000, enough for tuition, housing, and a small buffer. "One condition," Grandma said with a wink. "You walk across that graduation stage in 4 years." I promised, meaning every word. That weekend, I deposited the check and started planning, researching dorms, business clubs, even emailing professors. For the first time, I felt my dream was within reach. Of course, my family couldn't let me have that moment. When I shared my State University news at dinner, their reaction was off. "That's great, honey," Mom said, but her tone was flat. "Can you afford it, though?" "With Grandpa and Grandma's help and my savings, I'm set," I replied. Mom and Dad exchanged a strange look. "We're proud of you," Dad said, but something felt wrong. Brittany predictably made it about her. "State University is so lame. Why hang out with boring business geeks?" "Because some of us want to build a future, not just pose for photos," I snapped. "Ryan, apologize to your sister," Mom scolded. Classic, Brittany could trash my dreams, but I couldn't call out her lack of ambition. I should have questioned that odd look my parents shared or why they seemed anxious instead of excited. But I was too thrilled to care. That was a mistake. The first sign of trouble hit a week before I was due to transfer my tuition money. Checking my account online, I nearly passed out. My $38,247 education fund was down to $28.91. I refreshed the page repeatedly, thinking it was a glitch. But the transactions were clear. Withdrawals of $2,000, $3,500, $1,800 stretching back months. Someone had been draining my account. I sped to the bank, heart pounding. The teller confirmed my fears. The withdrawals were made with a debit card linked to the account, which listed my parents as joint holders since I'd opened it as a minor. "It was the secondary cardholder's access," the teller said sympathetically. My parents had been stealing from me for months. I sat in my truck in the parking lot reeling. Years of grueling work, construction in scorching heat, fixing bikes instead of hanging out, skipping meals to save, all gone. I drove home, keeping my cool to avoid tipping them off. That night I overheard them arguing in their bedroom. "We can't keep this up, David," Mom said. "The business account's overdrawn, the credit cards are maxed, and the bank's hounding us about the mortgage." "What choice do we have?" Dad replied. "We can't let Brittany's screw-ups ruin her future." "Screw-ups? What screw-ups?" "Maybe we can take the rest from Ryan's account," Mom suggested. "He won't need it all right away." "The rest?" "They were planning to take what little was left." "Good thing that kid's so responsible," Dad chuckled. "He'll figure it out." Then Brittany's voice chimed in. "Can you guys chill? I'm trying to FaceTime Blake about our Miami trip." A Miami trip while they stole my future. I'd heard enough. I stormed into their room. "We need to talk." They froze, caught red-handed. "Where's my $35,000? I demanded. Silence. Finally, Dad mumbled, "Son, the business had some unexpected costs. We borrowed some, but we'll pay it back." "Borrowed?" I shouted. "You stole it, and you're planning to take more? Don't speak to your father like that," Mom snapped. Brittany, sprawled on her bed, scrolled her phone, unbothered. "It's just money, you guys are so extra," she said. "Just money. My life's work was just money to her." "What screw-ups of Brittany's are you covering?" I pressed. The truth spilled out. Brittany had racked up $12,000 in credit card debt on clothes and her influencer lifestyle, plus thousands in traffic fines and legal fees. She'd also crashed her last car while texting, and insurance didn't cover it all since she was at fault. "So you stole my college fund to bankroll her shopping and recklessness?" I asked, stunned. "It's family money," Dad said defensively. "Family helps family." "I'm family too," I yelled. "What about my future?" "You're smart, you'll figure it out," Mom said with a shrug. Brittany rolled her eyes. "Can you fight later? I'm planning a trip." That was it. They didn't see me as family, just a resource to exploit for Brittany. I walked out vowing they'd pay. The next few days were brutal. I had to defer my state university enrollment due to financial issues, a call that crushed me. But instead of sulking, I got strategic. My friend Tyler, a tech-savvy guy whose dad had been burned in a business deal, offered to help. "You want me to dig into your family's finances?" he asked. "Everything you can find," I said. For 2 weeks, we scoured public records, court filings, and Brittany's social media at the library. The findings were worse than I'd imagined. Dad's business was a mess. Back taxes, defaulted loans, and customer lawsuits for shoddy work. Brittany wasn't just spoiled. She was committing fraud, opening credit cards in the business's name, and scamming local companies with fake influencer deals. One had already reported her to the Better Business Bureau. She'd also been caught shoplifting twice, with my parents paying fines to keep her out of trouble, and cheating on exams with tutors and appeals to avoid expulsion. The kicker: Dad was embezzling from his own company, faking invoices and inflating costs. He'd taken a second mortgage on the house and borrowed against his life insurance. They were drowning in debt, facing bankruptcy and potential criminal charges. "They're running a scam operation and your college money funded it," Tyler said. I decided to play the long game, let them think they'd won, then strike. I acted normal, picking up extra work shifts and researching community college options, playing the defeated son. Meanwhile, I documented every lavish purchase Brittany made and every lie my parents told. Then Grandpa Joe called, worried. "Did your parents ask about our $15,000 gift?" "No, why? Your dad said you'd spent most of it on pre-enrollment costs and asked us for a loan." They'd lied to my grandparents, too. I told Grandpa everything, and his voice turned icy. "They stole from my grandson. What do you need to fix this?" Grandpa was livid and ready to act. "What they did is theft," he said, already calling his attorney. I had another plan. "What if we make them confess everything themselves?" I suggested. "Get them desperate enough to admit it all?" Grandpa grinned. "What's the plan?" My family cared about appearances, Dad's business rep, Mom's social status, Brittany's Instagram persona. I'd hit them where it hurt. First, I anonymously reported Dad's shady business practices to the state licensing board and IRS, including evidence of fake invoices and cut corners. I tipped off the companies Brittany scammed, urging them to pursue fraud charges. For her cheating, I sent anonymous tips to her college, knowing they'd investigate. Within weeks, the consequences hit. The licensing board launched an investigation. The IRS questioned Dad's taxes. 2 companies filed fraud complaints against Brittany. Her college suspended her pending a cheating probe. I played the supportive son, offering fake sympathy while secretly tracking their panic. Dad worked late, scrambling to save the business. Mom was on the phone with lawyers. Brittany had daily meltdowns about expulsion. They thought I was too busy scraping by to notice. When Dad's biggest client dropped him, losing $40,000 in revenue, Mom said, "We'll have to sell the house." Dad worried about Brittany's legal fees. I suggested to Grandpa that he and Grandma hold a family finance meeting, recording everything. At the meeting, posing as a potential bailout, Grandpa got them to confess. On the recording, they admitted stealing my money, covering Brittany's debts and Dad's embezzlement, tax fraud, and more. Brittany barged in, admitting her fraud and theft without remorse. "Ryan's a loser anyway," she sneered. "He'll end up in some dead-end job." Dad snapped, blaming her influencer dreams for their ruin. They begged Grandpa for help, unaware I'd orchestrated it all. Grandpa's attorney drafted a restitution agreement. Repay $52,847, my $35,000 plus interest and damages within 6 months, plus a public confession, or face criminal and civil charges. Knowing they couldn't pay, I'd have them trapped. Days later, they called me over looking defeated. They confessed everything, every dollar stolen, every lie. Dad cried, Mom apologized, Brittany pouted. They begged me to ask Grandpa for leniency. "You stole my future," I said. "You could have asked for help and I might have given it. Instead, you lied, now you face the consequences." They signed the agreement. Dad's business collapsed and they couldn't sell the house. Mom got a retail job, Brittany was expelled. Their world crumbled and I felt no pity. They'd learn what accountability meant.